Hey guys, welcome to my channel. It's YC Rhino, and today I'm going to be doing something extra special to close out 2022. So, for me, one of my favorite things that happens at the end of the year is when we get a recap of the year before, right? Whether it's a music, the top 10 songs of the year or the top 10 movies of the year. I just love that. I like the nostalgia. I like the going back in time and remembering. So I thought I would do something similar with my drag race experience. For me, for something to be memorable, it lives in my brain, right? It's one of those things that after an episode of Drag Race, I cannot stop thinking about that event. I Google it, I look it up on Twitter, I watch reaction videos to it. It's whatever it is that I cannot get enough of. That to me makes something, that's what memorable means to me. Now, some of these things may be happy, but some of them are also very sad. So I thought I would pick my top 10 most memorable moments in Drag Race of 2022 and I would share them with you. I hope that we have some in common. And maybe you can even recommend some to me that I miss. But let's go ahead and get into it. This is my top 10 most memorable moments of Drag Race 2022. First up at number 10 is Miss Fiercelicious versus everybody. If you watch Canada's Drag Race Season 3 this year, then you were introduced to Miss Fiercelicious. At first glance, I was very impressed with Fierce. I thought she was probably one of the most beautiful queens that has ever been on Drag Race. She seemed very polished. She seemed very, very confident in herself. But it didn't take long for things to start to go downhill with Miss Fiercelicious. I think even on the first episode, there were some hints at some underlying social issues with Miss Fiercelicious. And I don't think it wasn't very far, maybe episode 2, where she started having tantrums, and I think she got into a disagreement with just about every queen on season 3. There may be a few that she didn't get into it with, but just about everybody at some point was in Fiercelicious's crosshairs, and I thought it was funny. At first, it was not entertaining. It was very, very annoying and off-putting. But I think once I embraced that, well, maybe she's doing this on purpose. Maybe she's doing this because obviously, you are a queen amongst a bunch of other queens. You've got to take that stance, right? You got to take that moment. This is your moment on television. You got to make the most out of it. And I think by far, Miss Fiercelicious proved that bad TV is good TV. and obviously whatever she did worked, because I think she's one of the few of queens from Canada's Drag Race Season 3 that I actually follow on social media. So maybe she did know what she was doing. It was highly entertaining, even though it was very annoying at times. But yeah, I think Miss Fiercelicious getting into it with everybody during season 3 definitely made that season 3 probably, that was the most memorable thing for me about Canada's Drag Race season 3. Next up at number 9. So before I go into this one, we've seen a lot of stunts on Drag Race, right? We've got 14 seasons, you've got international, you've got all stars. And occasionally we see a stunt and you kind of go, is that real? Is that not real? Well, this next one on my list of most memorable is one of the few that I legitimately thought was a real fall. And that is Lady Camden's fake out. So on this particular episode of Drag Race, this is Drag Race 14, the queens, this is when they did the Coda Wins challenge, I believe it was, and they had the chaps runway. So, everybody's coming out, you're looking at them in their chaps, looks really, really cute. And you see Lady, I don't know why I keep want to call her Miss. You see Lady Camden come around the corner, and as she starts to come down the runway, she trips and it looked real. I mean, it looked completely real to me. And not that necessarily that the judges like Rue or Michelle or really indicate any indication, but they even seemed shocked, right? They seemed to be like startled. And as Lady Camden is going to get up, well, when she falls, first of all, like her wig falls off, but when she goes to get up, you realize that it was a stunt, and she stands up and she's like Freddie Mercury in this black and white jumpsuit. It was so good. I love that moment in Drag Race history. I think that that's one of those moments that if you don't do it as good as she did it, don't do it. Like, I think she had the most convincing fake out fall of anyone ever. If there's another one that you guys can think of, please let me know. But hers is the one that I think of the most. And I actually go back and watch that because it's so good. It's really good. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So the next one is actually a fairly recent moment in Drag Race history. And I intentionally am doing this video this late in the year because I needed to see if this thing was going to happen. And it did. And I'm so excited. And that next thing is number 8. And that is Raja OHara wins. Yes, Raja OHara wins Canada versus the world. I cannot tell you guys how excited I was for Raja. She definitely, I felt like Raja has been on this winning streak. And by winning streak, I mean winning at life. I mean, I feel like she's been on this winning streak since she was in All Stars 6. I know for her, it was important for her to be her authentic self and to be a more positive influence and to show people who she really was in All-Star 6. And I really fell in love with Raja during All-Star 6. I didn't remember that much about her from her season 11. So I didn't have a negative memory of her, a negative image of her, but I know that a lot of people did. And for her, it was important for her to kind of redeem herself. And I think Raja did a great job of redeeming herself in All-Star 6, and I think she was so close to winning. I think it was really neck and neck between Raja and Kylie Sonique Love. So for her not to win, it was definitely one of those things where the universe had to make it right. Like, it was one of those things where the universe had to correct that. And I think that Canada versus the world was the time and place for that. And although I think it could have just as easily have gone to Silky or even to Victoria Scone, I am so happy that it happened for Raja. She is definitely, I think she's a light in Drag Race, because if you go back and you watch All-Star 6 or even you watch Canada versus the World, her thing is pouring positive affirmation into other people. And I think that that's what makes Raja probably one of the most special queens from Drag Race. Definitely my top 5. Absolutely. Heck, even probably my top 3. But I was so happy to see her finally get the win that I felt like she so much deserved. And I'm wish her all of the fortune in the world. So let's go ahead and move on, guys. Next up, number 7. So I'm going to get a little, I feel like I need to give a little preface with each of these. So we've seen a lot of talent shows on Drag Race, and we've seen some good talent shows, and we have seen some bad talent shows. But this particular Queen's talent show was unlike anything we have ever seen on Drag Race before. And my number 7 is Jimbo's talent show. When Jimbo first came out in this alien egg costume, I don't think anyone knew what to expect. And what we saw in the next minute and a half, I guess it was about a minute and a half, had to be the most bizarre talent show stunt that we have ever seen before. Not only does Jimbo have an empty talent box, which I thought was brilliant. No talent there. She lays a a stack of bologna, and she flings it over at the queens who are waiting on the side of the stage. She flings a piece of it to RuPaul, and I think that was probably what made me. And I already liked Jimbo. Jimbo was definitely one of my favorites from Canada season one, but that moment in Drag Race with her flinging that piece of bologna to RuPaul, that was like an iconic moment in the show, right? Never in a million years would you ever expect to see someone give birth to a stack of bologna, much less fling it across the stage to RuPaul Charles. I thought that was so funny. And I think that definitely sealed Jimbo's place in the Canada's, in the UK versus the World Hall of Fame, right? There were a lot of memorable moments from that season, but Jimbo's talent show is definitely up there. And speaking of UK versus the world, my top 6 moment also comes from UK versus the world. Now, this is one of those very contentious moments in Drag Race history, right? Some people were devastated by it. Some people were gagged by it. Some people loved it. I personally was very tickled by it. And before I say what it is, I want to preface, this has nothing to do with the queens involved. This is more about the game and how things can turn on a dime sometimes, right? So my number 6 moment, most memorable moment of 2022 was Blue Hydrangea eliminating Pangina Hills. Now, no matter how you feel about this moment, you have got to admit this was great television. And it is definitely probably the number one moment in UK versus the world. This was kind of one of those moments that kind of turned the tables. It was just the week before when Pangina eliminated Jimbo. At that time, Jimbo had won she had won 2 out of the 3 weeks. She'd been in the top 2 out of the 3 weeks. And I think she was definitely a front runner, right? She was a front runner. When Pangina eliminated Jimbo, no matter what her motivation was, she opened a door that I think had she known what was going to happen, she probably wouldn't have opened. But by doing that, she kind of set in motion this attitude, not even an attitude, but yeah, I guess you could say attitude. She set into motion this attitude amongst the queens that, hey, your track record doesn't matter. We're going to go by this challenge and this challenge only. And the challenge was the snatch game, and Pangina did very poorly. She chose to do, I think she did Mariah Carey, and she ended up in the bottom. And Blue, who I felt like at that point, Blue had been doing very, very well, but she had not won yet. I think she'd been like safe high to that point, right? And so I think her choice at the time was to either eliminate Pangina or Janie Jacquet. And I think Janie did, gosh, I don't even remember who Janie did in the snatch game, but I think maybe Janie did slightly better in the snatch game. And so Blue took the opportunity, whether it was strategy, whether it was payback, I don't know. I don't know what I don't know what her motivation was, but she took that opportunity to eliminate Pangina, and the outrage, the outrage amongst the Drag Race community was out there. It was amazing. I mean, you can go back and watch my reaction to it. It's on my channel. I've got a playlist for Drag Race UK versus the world. I personally was tickled to death. Please don't send me stupid emails. Hey, don't leave dumb messages, right? It's a show. Pangina is fine. She got over it. Jimbo's fine. Jimbo got over it. This is clearly about the entertainment value of the moment, and I found the moment to be highly entertaining. So that was my number 6 moment in Drag Race of 2022. So let's go ahead and move on. Actually, this is the one of 2 lip syncs that I chose for my recap of 2022. In some cases, it may just be one part of the lip sync, or it may be the whole lip sync itself. But for number 5, I chose it was Drag Race Down Under season 2, and it was the lip sync between Queen Kong and Beverly Kills. So if you watched Drag Race Down Under season 2, these 2 queens kind of there was some tension between these 2 leading up to this lip sync. Maybe like the week before, maybe the 2 weeks before, they had some words. So it was definitely some tension there. So when these 2 ended up in the bottom, it had all of the makings for an iconic lip sync. I think a lot of people kind of expected Queen to just completely smash Beverly Kills. But Beverly, her claim to fame was that she was definitely a lip sync assassin. So we had to see what it looked like when these 2 juggernauts came together. And let me tell you, what came out of that lip sync was the most chaotic lip sync ever in lip sync history. Don't anybody ever tell you different. Now, we've had some wild lip syncs before, right? Shoes come off, wigs come off, clothes come off. This was none of those things. I think these queens managed to keep all of their shoes on. They managed to keep their clothes on and their wigs on. But what was so memorable about this lip sync was that they were just going at it. I mean, just flinging their bodies across the stage, pounding their pussies into the stage. Just, it was complete mayhem. Like, generally when we see a lip sync, right, you'll see Rue smiling. Oh, you hear Rue in the background. Rue and Michelle and Reese, I can't remember Reese's last name right this second, were completely just blown away, just floored by how physical this lip sync got. I mean, this is one of those ones that I have rewatched over and over and over again. And every time I watch it, I see something different because there was so much going on. I even like to watch and just look at the girls in the background. When the queens are in the background and they're just, watching the queens on stage, I like to look at their reactions too. That's how good this lip sync was. This was an amazing mess. It was so messy, but I loved it. It made me laugh. I was crying. It was so good. It was so chaotic. It was so manic. So yeah, definitely top 5 favorite moment of Drag Race this year. Okay, anyway, so let's move on. So next, this is also a lip sync moment. And as chaotic and as frantic and entertaining and wild as number 5 was, this next moment, lip sync, is probably the exact opposite of that. It's a complete 180, and that is number 4, Lolita Banana and Big Bertha lip sync in Drag Race France. Occasionally, we will get a lip sync on Drag Race where you can tell that the song, the moment is right. And the queens who are lip syncing those songs, they're not just going through the motions. Like, they feel that song. There's an emotion with that song, and it comes across to us in the audience. In this particular lip sync, both Lolita and Big Bertha were in the bottom, right? And if you watched, or even if you didn't watch Drag Race France, if you didn't, I definitely recommended you watch it because I thought it was a fantastic first season for a Drag Race franchise. I think Nikki Doll did a fantastic job hosting, and I agreed with most of the judges' critiques. Unfortunately, there were there was at least one elimination that I didn't think was fair, but overall it was a very, very enjoyable season. But during season one of Drag Race France, Lolita Banana had expressed to the other queens that she felt alone, like she felt like an outsider, and she really didn't feel like she fit in. France is her adopted home. She's actually originally from Mexico, but she'd been living in France and she just felt like she didn't have a connection with a lot of people and she didn't connect with the queens on her season. Big Bertha, on the other hand, was a very jovial, very outgoing queen. She seemed like she had a lot of friends. Other queens who were on the show didn't seem to have any problem making connections with people. And she expressed her annoyance at Lolita a lot. So Lolita was definitely a more energetic queen when it came to the challenges. She definitely was able to channel that confidence through her performance, that she may not have had in her personal life. And Big Bertha found her annoying a lot of the times. And she, even made some comments to Lolita, which I think, even though Lolita put on a good face, I think it did affect her, and I think it made her feel more like an outsider. So when these two queens ended up in the bottom, they had to lip sync against each other, and obviously the song is in French, so I don't know the song, and I didn't know the words, but it was a very emotional song, and it was about acceptance. I believe the artist who sang the song was actually one of the judges. And I believe that she communicated that it was about her being able to accept herself, right? So, when the lip sync started, you could tell it was going to be a very different kind of lip sync, and it didn't take long before it got to be very, very serious. Lolita, I believe she took off her wig, she cut her hair. She took off her clothes. Big Bertha took off their clothes. And then by the end of it, like, these two queens were just holding each other, embracing each other in the middle of the stage. And I'm talking about crying. Everybody was crying. I was crying. They were crying. Nikki Doll was crying. The other judges were crying. It was the most emotional lip sync ever to take place in Drag Race history. It was definitely something to see. So if you haven't checked out, like I said, if you haven't checked out Drag Race France, you should definitely check that one out. I don't remember what episode that was. I think it was episode 6. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely check that out. So now we made it to my top 3 picks for 2022. First up at number 3 is Monet Exchange's talent show. So we knew from season 10 that Monet Exchange had studied opera, that she'd gone to school, studied to be an opera singer, but she wasn't doing that right now. That wasn't something that she had ever considered incorporating into her drag style. So when the opportunity came up to do a talent show, she did indicate that she had planned on doing an original song, but then changed her mind and decided to do an opera piece instead. And when I tell you, I was blown away. I think that is the single most beautiful moment of talent in all of Drag Race. I think it's something that we've never seen before. It was so unique and so special, and it was just like you could hear a pin drop. It was so quiet, and I think that Monet bringing that part of her life into Drag Race, I think it was a special treat for us. Is that something that Monet is going to do all the ways? I don't think so. I don't think she had indicated that that's something she'd planned on doing, but it was definitely a treat for us, that watched All Star 7, who have grown to love Monet Exchange since season 10. For us, it was a special treat, and it's definitely not one that I will ever forget. I thought it was fantastic, and hands down for me, that is what sealed her place in the top three for sure for me for Drag Race All Star 7. Speaking of talent, this next one's not a talent show, but it is a talent. And this particular franchise of Drag Race, this was their first year out of the gate. And I've been very hard on the Drag Race Philippines franchise because I think not for the queens. The queens have been fantastic. And I want to make sure I preface that in everything that I say in all of my top 10. These queens are amazing. On their worst days, they are better than me, that I could ever be on my best day. I completely appreciate and honor and just have the most respect for what these queens do. I know it takes talent, it takes sacrifice, it takes a lot of hard work. But with that said, going back to what I was saying, Drag Race Philippines, brand new franchise, definitely could use some work in the editing department. I'm just saying, get those episodes down to an hour and you'll have a fan in me. But for me, the single moment that saved that season for me, the one, because I was on my way out. I was about to be done with Drag Race Philippines because I just couldn't get into it. It was just too much talking for me. And I was on my way out. But I said, you know what? I'm going to watch one more episode and see what happens. And let me tell you, I am so glad that I did. My number 2 most memorable moment of 2022 is Drag Race Philippines Pop Off Ate. This girl group challenge, hands down, is the best girl group challenge ever in Drag Race history. Not just 2022. Any season. Regular Drag Race, All Stars, International, you name it. Drag Race Philippines Pop Off Ate Girl Group Challenge was amazing. These queens managed to pull this. I don't even know where they got this from, because in the rehearsal, it didn't seem like it was going to go that great. I know that there was a lot of cattiness between these queens building up to this when they were picking their teams. I think actually the challenge before they picked their teams, it was like a superlative where they had to rank each other 1 through 10. And I think Brigadine was like number 10 on everybody's list. And so it was definitely a girl clique. The way the queens ended up, it was definitely the cliques kind of gravitated towards one another. But the outcome of this challenge was Drag Race. It was excellence. It was absolute excellence. I think the first team, Pink Pussy Energy, it's so weird saying that. The first team, Pink Pussy Energy, they did a great job. It was, there was some problems with the choreography, but I think the bones were there. The structure was there. But when the Flex Bomb group came out, like, game over. Full stop. Game over. They killed that challenge. At that point, I hadn't really learned all of the queens yet. I was still trying to figure everyone out. But for me, in that episode, in that particular challenge, that's where some of the queens who would go on to be in the top 4 and top 5, where they stood out for me. Marina Summers, Eva LaQueen, Brigadine, Turing, just absolutely, I cannot say how amazing I thought that challenge was. And that's one of those songs, Pop Off Ate is one of those songs that once I hear it, because trust me, I go back and I watch that particular challenge a lot. But once I hear it, that song is like stuck in my head. I don't even know the words, but it's in my head, and I'm just all around the house. Pop off my day. I love it. I love it. And I hope you guys love that one too. Yeah, and then at the end where they all come together and it's like a dance off and they're just, it's so good. It's so good. If you haven't seen Drag Race Philippines, it is available on Wow Presents. I definitely recommend that you go and you watch the girl group challenge. I believe it was I think it's episode 3. Definitely go and watch that, or you can even see the video on YouTube. It's all over the place. You can see it. Tell me what you think. I think you're gonna love it. Now, before I get to number one, the number one most memorable moment on of 2022, I want to take this opportunity to I have an honorable mention that I want to recognize. Now, this wasn't a Drag Race reaction. It actually wasn't even Drag Race at all. It was actually a different franchise. It was Dragula Titans. But I want to take this opportunity to give an honorable mention, and that honorable mention goes to my guest appearance on Valerie Vision's channel. A few weeks ago, Valerie invited me to join her in a live recap of Dragula Titans season finale. That was last week actually, and I was so honored for her to ask me to come on her channel and to kiki with her, and I just had a great time. And for someone like me, I've got a smaller channel, relative, right, to the other YouTube reactors who react to Drag Race, but for her to recognize me and to acknowledge me and to invite me onto her platform, that was, in a way, that was my validation that I needed. Because sometimes you don't know if you're reaching people with your channel, and sometimes you just need someone to tell you that what you're doing is good and that you belong and that you have value, right? So I needed that, and she gave that to me. So thank you so much to Valerie. I know you guys are probably already subscribed to her channel, so I don't need to tell you to do that. But if you're not, just by chance, make sure you subscribe to Valerie's channel and watch all of her reactions, because she does a fantastic job. So moving on, this is number one. This was my most memorable moment on Drag Race this year. I think this episode actually for Drag Race probably was one of the most watched episodes of Drag Race for anyone all year. Definitely my reaction video probably had the most likes of any Drag Race episode that I've ever had on my channel. So for me, it was pretty important. But yeah, so number one, and you guys can probably guess what this is without me even telling you. But my number one most memorable moment in Drag Race 2022 is the one and only number one, Jinx Monsoon's Snatch Game. What Jinx did on Snatch. Now, before I get into Jinx, I want to say everybody did a great job on Snatch Game. I think All-Star 7 is one of those Snatch Games that, whether it was production, choosing to keep in all the best parts, or if the queens were really just as good as they appeared to be, I don't know what the case is. I really don't care. It was good entertainment, so that's all I care about. But as good as everyone was, and I think in a regular season of Drag Race, I think almost any one of those queens, particularly Raja, Monet, the Vivian, Trinity, I think any one of them could have won Snatch Game in their season. I think if they'd have done that, they would have been head and shoulders above everybody else. But what Jinx Monsoon did in the All-Star 7 Drag Race Snatch Game was a moment. Like, it was a moment in history. No one, I mean, we've had some funny Snatch Games. Obviously, Jinx was very funny on Snatch Game on season 5. And we've seen like the likes of Ben de la Creme, and Ben's really good, but what Jinx did was just a masterclass in improvisation, in comedy, in impersonations. It was a masterpiece. Like, it was genius. So smart, so funny. Her Natasha Leone, I thought it was funny. If she had just done that, I thought she would have been fine. But the Judy Garland impersonation she did was off the charts. That was the funniest thing I have ever seen on Drag Race. I was howling, crying, cackling. I had to cut my reaction video down because there was it kept getting blocked because there was so much of me, but which I don't understand why, because it was me just dying laughing. Her The things that she goes to when she's in that mode, like, that she thinks of, like, how's she so smart? How does she think so quickly on her feet? Bringing up Dave, the veteran that she met during season 6. Like, I mean, obviously I know she thought about that in advance, but to bring that back to all of us who we've long forgot about that story, right? And she brought that back and she killed that shit. Oh, she killed that shit. It was so good. Oh, that's definitely one. That Snatch Game is definitely one that after you see that, you're like, they can just do away with the Snatch Game, because there's no way anyone is ever going to be that good at Snatch Game ever again. Like, it was just a masterpiece. I cannot say how good it was. And I think if anybody had asked me, anybody who hadn't watched Drag Race before and kind of wanted to know what it was about, obviously the Snatch Game is one of those things that kind of gives you an indication how Drag Race works. So that would definitely be one that I would tell them to go watch, because it is fantastic. All right, guys. So there you have it. That was my top 10 most memorable moments in Drag Race for 2022. I hope you guys agreed with all of the choices that I made. If you have your own, if there's some memorable moments that were special to you and you want to talk about it, put them in the comments below and we can chat about them. So in addition to doing this recap, I just want to thank everyone who supported my channel this year, whether it was by viewing my videos, liking my videos, subscribing to my channel. Anything that you did this year that helped my channel out, I thank you so much. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would love if you could do that. Definitely would like to see my viewership grow in 2023. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to try to hit every season of Drag Race. I know we've got a lot of new Drag Race coming up next year. Drag Race Belgium, Germany, Mexico. In addition to season 15, which starts next week. I think there's going to be a global all-stars. So there's going to be a lot of Drag Race for you guys to come to my channel and watch me react to. So thanks again. I really, really appreciate your support this year. I look forward to having an even bigger 2023. I'll see you later. Bye.